Sir Keir Starmer is understood to have struck a deal with EU leaders ahead of their first bilateral summit since our split from the bloc. We're still hearing developments on this, and the finer details will come out throughout the morning. But let me just take you through some of the things that have happened so far. This is based on breaking reports this morning. We've already heard there has been an agreement on fishing. So that's a 12-year deal which has been done, allowing access for EU boats into British waters. It was believed to be a key sticking point and is likely to cause, to say the very least, a very big row. We're also hearing about youth mobility. The EU want young Europeans to be able to live, work and study here more easily. Britain wants to cap the numbers and the duration of their visas, but Brussels is apparently revisiting this. There's been an agreement to keep talking about this, but critics are concerned this will open the floodgates to uncapped migration. Now, the other big issue is around food standards. Britain could agree to align with the EU on food safety and animal welfare in return for Brussels easing checks on British products sold in Europe. There'll be also some sort of defence agreement too, with talks of a new partnership which would allow British companies to access an EU loan scheme and bid for EU defence contracts. And, well, this is the upside. This is what I suppose we get. Good news for travellers. We are hearing news of a deal that would allow British tourists arriving in Europe to use the EU passport gates, which would reduce those terrible queues and waiting times at the border. The Conservatives have already accused the government of bending the knee to the EU. But what do you think, panel? Is this capitulation? Is this appeasement? I'm going to go first to you, Annabel. Is this a disaster?
It certainly looks like a disaster at this stage. There were warnings last week that it would be a surrender summit. Some suggested that those fears were overblown, but yet it now seems to be unfolding exactly as many feared that it would. Look, I take issue with the use of this word deal. Deal suggests to me that both sides are going to gain something from these negotiations. What we're really seeing is, as you say, Rob, a capitulation. What the UK
Well, I didn't say that. I asked
do,
it as a question, just to be clear.
Sure. To use your language, a capitulation. What we're going to do is give away our fundamental freedoms in exchange for technicalities like e-gates, so that we can get through passport control more quickly in European countries, which I suspect is something that the EU over time would be looking to roll out anyway, because it would be a cost-cutting measure. So what are we going to do? We're going to give away access to our fishing waters, allowing EU countries to
Keir Starmer says it's
a
a reset, right? And it's giving what people want. There'll be people calling in this morning. Just to be clear, according to a reliable YouGov poll, 55% of Britons now say it was wrong for the UK to leave the EU, with just 11% seeing Brexit as more of a success than a failure. Henry, that being said, with all of those numbers, people in the southwest, right, where fishing industries were decimated, in Cornwall and Devon and so on, will be really troubled by the so-called deal that was made this morning. And Annabel makes a point. If you get a deal, you need something in return. What are they getting in return?
Well, think about it. I mean, seafood exports to the EU dropped 83% in the first year of the full trade and cooperation agreement, 83%, and jobs dropped by 6%, which is in the tens of thousands. And think about what we've done with our Brexit freedoms thus far in the 9 years since the referendum and the 5 years of the trade and cooperation agreement. We've done a couple of small Trans-Pacific partnership deals, which are going to increase our GDP by about 0.08% in the next 10 years. We've struggled to sign any trade deals. During the period of the Tory regime, we didn't sign trade deals with with the United States or with India. We did a little one with
Sorry, Henry, in the last month we have struck trade deals with both India and the US, which would not have been able to do if we'd remained in the bloc. In terms of what else we've managed to achieve...
I let you speak. Yeah, go on a second. Yeah, OK. The Labour government, which is now being accused of surrender, has managed to sign trade deals with India and the United States. The previous government, which was a very Brexit government with 4 different prime ministers, signed no trade deals with anybody apart from Australia and New Zealand and this Trans-Pacific partnership, which has added almost no nothing to our GDP, and people are very, very concerned. 60% of people say they would like to see a better and closer relationship with the EU as opposed to.
But hang on, Annabel, what were you going to say in response to that? I mean, you're saying that being outside of the EU has given the UK the leeway and the freedom to negotiate with other important trading partners.
Which is exactly what we've done. I don't think that you should be downplaying the benefits to the UK economy of having a trade deal with Australia, of having a trade deal with New Zealand, of joining.
Do you know what farmers think about those trade deals? Do you know what our beef farmers...
Right, you are now talking over me. Please allow me to finish.
OK, go on.
OK, what also we've had is the highest performing economy in the Eurozone. What we have seen ever since 17.4 million people voted to leave the European Union in 2016 is everybody who is in favour of Remain treating Brexit like a bogeyman of the British economy and undermining and downplaying all of the benefits of Brexit whilst overstating all of the costs. There are inevitably going to be teething problems. And it goes without saying that initially it was handled extremely badly. It shouldn't have taken us that 3 years to get a deal. It shouldn't have taken so long for us to implement it. Brexit was always an opportunity, never a guarantee.
Well, I hear you, Annabel. Another person who disagrees with you is Nick, who's down in Devon. You think this was all being handled rather well, don't you, Nick?
I think it's really good news for Britain, and I think that it's a real step in the right direction. I mean, the reason the fishing industry is doing as badly as it was because of Brexit. Let's be perfectly clear about that. What the government is trying to do is actually right some of the wrongs, the red tape involved for our fishermen. Many of them now that have just gone bankrupt and given up is amazing. I mean, the point is we need to sell our fish abroad.
Nick,
sorry, can I please?
You can, but actually I'm going to get some help from you because you're a part of our country where fishing is very, very important. It's an important industry down in Devon and Cornwall. And a lot of people were motivated to vote for Brexit down there because they saw the overfishing. It's a very important case called factor time, which meant that especially Spanish trawlers, etc., could come and fish in our waters, and there was no reciprocity or adequate protection for British fishermen. Are you saying that post-Brexit, a lot of those people, a lot of those industries, it's kind of the point that Henry's making, feel that they've been sold a bum deal and they want back into the community?
The important thing is that we sell our fish, quite honestly, Rob. That's the important thing. And the thing is, Brexit has made it much more difficult for people to sell the fish. But on top of that, I mean, the whole deal itself is actually good news. It's good news for our young people who now are able, hopefully will be able to go over to Europe without all the red tape that actually has been created through Brexit. I mean, and it also means that lots of other parts of our industry, our defence industry, that is extremely good, will now be able to take advantage of the fact that there's going to be an increase in sort of defence spending for the European countries.
Well, thanks very much. We hear you on that one, Nick. The question that other callers will no doubt have is, we seem to be giving away a lot, allowing European students to come here, allowing British trawlers to come and fish in our waters. What do we get in return? But thanks, Nick, you make a powerful point. After the break, we'll be taking more of your calls on this. Has the Prime Minister betrayed Brexit? But what do you think? Negotiations to reset the UK's post-Brexit relationship with Europe have been underway ahead of a big summit today. We're already hearing a deal has been done on fishing, but the Prime Minister has been accused of bending the knee to Europe. I'm going to go first to Kent. Paul, have we surrendered? Is this appeasement in the air?
Very good morning to you. This is always going to be a divisive subject, similar, and I agree with Annabel, but I don't agree with Henry. Yes, it is a surrender, because this was never mentioned in their manifesto. Labour have lied to come into power, and Labour are continuing their lie now. It's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. And you're rightly saying they've already given away the rights for fishermen, because the simple analogy to this really is Brexit never failed. What did fail was the politicians failing Brexit. That's the problem we have here. It's all to do with the withdrawal agreement. That was a complete and utter fallacy, was a complete and utter failure. If they got their act together, the situation we're in now with the fishermen's deal, that could have happened under Brexit.
Paul, you know what,
but the problem is...
Can I say something to you?
Thanks very much for your point, Paul. I'm going to go to Pauline in North Lanarkshire and then come back to you, Henry, because he makes a powerful point. Pauline, is this a moment where we're waving a white piece of paper and given in, and an anti-democratic moment? Is the last caller right? This wasn't in the Labour manifesto. Meanwhile, we've done a deal which perhaps has undermined the whole Brexit case in the first place?
I'm afraid I agree with Henry. Hallelujah that this deal is happening, and particularly, Rob, for the youth. Right. It's given them some hope back. And also for our struggling hospitalities, care sector, fruit picking, etc. They're going to get an influx of people who are really just here to have some fun and get an experience. They're not wanting to live here. I think it's amazing.
Right, well, not just fun, but also thanks for that call, Pauline, and for your shout of hallelujah. It's also the fact that there's economic reasons, and there are a number of jobs in those sectors. Yeah. Have someone from Kent in farming, for example, which frankly, have disappeared, and those businesses have undoubtedly suffered. Reciprocity of young people coming to do those jobs potentially could be a benefit of this deal. We wait to hear the details, but let's go up to Lancashire. Margaret, I hear you're bristling to get on and talk to me. What's your view? Have we surrendered, waved the white flag to Europe?
No, we have not.
I hear you cheering.
Brexit was a betrayal to the United Kingdom. It was corrupted by Russia and the Conservatives, like the Reform Party today. Why is Reform on every media channel, newspapers, getting all the push? I'll tell you why. It's for the rich. Brexit will open up the offshore bank accounts. They will have to pay tax. Farage, Reform UK PLC, is not a party. It's a company.
I hear you, Margaret, but the thing is that it was a Conservative government, in fact.
Exactly.
That said, it's time. Let's have a referendum, and it was voted by the general public in a democratic vote. And it's also right to say that it was, in many respects, Sunderland came in first. Some of the more socio-economic challenged parts of our country that voted for Brexit.
Our economy has gone down the pan.
Well, I hear what you say, but I'm going to move on to Steve. You've made your point, I have to say, very, very loud and very, very clear. And not sure what Russia had to do with it, but always happy to be educated. Steve, in Hampshire, is the white flag being waved, or do you think this is a happy moment?
No, the white flag has been waved. A lot of people don't understand that when Teddy took us into the common market, he took us in through the back door. Nobody outside of Westminster has ever voted to join the common market or the European Union. Mm-hmm. And ever since we've been in the European Union, they have become a dictatorship.
Well, actually, you're wrong about that, Steve. There was a referendum.
In 1975.
In 1975.
Margaret Thatcher was pro-remaining
referendum at that point. But I think the point you're trying to make, and not an unimportant one, is originally people signed up because they thought it would be about trade and free trade, and that would be beneficial to the original small number of countries were in it, but it's expanded. Well, there's now a single currency, etc., and that's reduced the amount of freedom. And a lot of people from the left, Tony Benn, for example, said, look, the problem with Europe is that you should be able to vote out the people who make decisions on your behalf and have power over you. And that's one of the reasons people were extremely, my grandparents included, anti-EU. Had nothing to do with jingoism or racism. It's purely a democratic deficit. If people are making rules about you, you should be able to vote them out. But I think, Steve, that was generally the point that you're making. Roy, you're in Wolverhampton. I hear you're itching to get in touch. What's going on in Wolverhampton?
Well, in this part of Wolverhampton, I think, why did they ask us in the first place? I've heard so many excuses. We didn't know what we was voting for, but we did. And we gave the government the country back, and they didn't know what to do with it. And they still don't know what to do with it. We're paying the French to stop the boats, and they're still sending them, they're waving them through. And we're supposed to believe all these figures that the one panel was quoting, that so many percent of it didn't want it. But the true figures are, the facts are, the referendum said we did want it.
That's right. And I need to say something. Let me come back to you. Roy, thanks for your call in Wolverhampton. I hear what you say. Lots of people out there are thinking what Roy is.
OK, fair enough, but let's think about that. I mean, I think the original betrayal was presenting what has turned out to be an extremely difficult, complicated divorce as something that was really, really simple. It was going to be simple to break away from the EU. It's going to be simple to have all these trade deals, simple to stop these people from coming in when actually we need them. And remember, yes, 17.8%, 7 million people voted out, but something like 16.2 million voted remain. So that's 52-48. That's what the percentage, wasn't it, right? Yes. That's sort of like nearly 50-50 split. It didn't mean that we should go for the hardest of Brexit, which is what Theresa May, because she was weak in her leadership and she was desperately trying to protect herself from the right flank,
Annabel,
she caved in.
I mean, that's just a crazy argument.
Really? Why is it crazy?
Well, so when one political party wins 52% of the vote, 52% of the constituencies, you're going to go out and start campaigning to reverse
I'm talking about the referendum.
In a general election.
Not at all. No, it's not.
Massive exercise, it's worth saying, in democracy. Henry, I'm very sorry, but the arguments that you're making are very tired and they're very condescending.
Why are they condescending?
It was in 2016 and for years that Remainers insisted that those who voted for Brexit didn't really know what they were voting for, which is deeply
But there are people like Michael Gove who did not say we would be out of the single market, and the customs union. Many of the people who wanted Brexit did not insist that we'd be out of those.
Henry, one thing one of our callers said was that this was a betrayal by Labour because they didn't say it in the manifesto. Just to be clear, the Labour Party did say in the manifesto they were going to reset the relationship with Europe. You know, the question is, I hear you, is this a reset? We haven't got much time. Is this just a reset? And really what they promised to do in the first place, Annabel?
Well, OK, they're probably going to stay out of the customs union. They're going to stay out of the single market. So they will probably adhere to the letter of Brexit, but they won't adhere to the spirit of Brexit. What we will be doing is ceding our sovereignty once again to the European Union. We will be complying with EU laws and with European courts without really having
So no free movement, none of the same stuff we got before. So far, all we've got is it's quicker to get through the queue when you're going on holiday.
No, it's not.
Quick one. Do you think this is a disaster?
We are doing more. We want to do more trade with our closest partners because we've looked the other way across the Atlantic and we found we've got a deeply unreliable partner in the United States.
Right, well, there was a deal there. We've had a lot of calls on this. No doubt there'll be more later. Thank you for all your calls on this.